The show you are about to see tonight was written and rehearsed as a tribute to Jens Nielson for his 200th birthday celebration last year, April 26, 2020. But because of the COVID pandemic, we were not allowed to do it. So here we are a year later at Bluff Fort, and we are thrilled to death to present to you, with the help of the Bluff Fort missionaries, Jens Nielson and the San Juan Mission.
The call to come to America was strong. They came from faraway lands, one from a family and one from a city, to gather together with the saints in Zion. They came searching for religious freedom to live the gospel they believed was restored to the earth by Jesus Christ himself, by a boy prophet named Joseph Smith. Jens Nielson was converted to the church in his homeland of Denmark.
I felt it, the voice of the Lord to go, and I did go by the hand of the Almighty.
Jens desired to go to Zion. However, before he could dispose of his possessions, he was called on a mission in his native land. He baptized about 15 people and presided over a small congregation. After an honorable release from his mission, he and his wife Elsie and their 5-year-old son Jens, whom they called Niels, and a 9-year-old girl named Waddell Mortensen, another convert, was entrusted to their care. They boarded a steamship in Copenhagen to go to Zion in the spring of 1856. Continuing their journey by locomotive and steamboat, they prepared for the trek to Zion.
I had money enough to come to Utah with a wagon and full team, but we were counseled to contribute as much as we could to the less fortunate. And that is why we crossed the plains with handcarts.
It was August 18th, a very late start for the 1,000-mile trip to Salt Lake City. The Willie Handcart Company struggled with one disaster after another.
The handcarts we had purchased were poorly made of green wood, and they began to fall to pieces very quickly. Very bad men followed us, harassing us with one threat of violence and then another.
On September 4th, the oxen stampeded and we lost half of them. We had to leave most of our belongings behind because there was no way to pull the heavy pack wagons. It also increased the load on the handcarts.
October found them still far from Zion. On the 12th, the rations dropped from a pound of flour a day per person to 10 ounces per day.
When we were 500 miles from Salt Lake City, the people began to die very fast.
The company traveled about 200 miles further, pulling the handcarts through snow sometimes 2 feet deep. On October 19th, the last of the flour was eaten. Rescue teams arrived about 2 days after with just enough food and warm clothing and a promise to get the people moving again. A quote from Levi Savage on October 23rd, Rocky Ridge.
We started our ascent up the Rocky Ridge. This was a bad day. The weather was terrible. The wind was hard and cold. The ascent was some 5 miles long, and sometimes steep and covered in snow. We became weary. We sat down to rest. And some became so chilled that they commenced to freeze. The relief wagons were so perfectly loaded with the sick and the children, and so thickly stacked that I was fearful some would smother. After a 16-mile journey up the Rocky Ridge, crossing over the high plateau, crossing creeks, through snow, most of it in the dark. We made our way to camp on the Sweetwater River. The next day, we buried 15 people there.
My heart was broken. Among those that was buried was my little son, Niels, only 5 years old, our only child, and sweet Bodil Mortensen, still clutching the brush she would never throw into the fire.
Jens's feet froze, one at an angle with the other. He could not walk. His beloved wife, Elsie, could not bear to leave him with her buried son on the frozen prairie, and ordered him into the handcart. Should he let her pull him as an ox on the frozen ground on the entire ride? She had already suffered everything but death. There was no other way. Mile after mile over the winter frozen road, she pulled that old ox cart toward Zion.
You'll see, you can't pull me all the way to Salt Lake in this thing. Just leave me here to die. You go on ahead. Go get yourself a new man, somebody who has feet.
Jens, I'll not leave you, and that is that.
You'll see, I'm not the man I used to be. I'm not the man you once chose.
What makes you think I'm in love with your feet? You don't love a man for his toes. Would you stop loving me if my feet freeze?
No, I will love you from your head to your knees.
Oh, Jens.
And when you are much older and your beauty starts to go,
By then you lose your eyesight, so you'll never even know.
and if I lose my hair,
You're assuming it's still there. We both could fall apart, and still it would be true. I love whatever's left of you. If Indians should scalp me, could you love me after that?
of course, my dear, I'd love you, but I'd hope you'd wear a hat.
And if my hair turns gray,
At least yours is there to stay. We both could fall apart, and still it would be true. I'll love whatever's left of you. Everything will be different now.
how will it be different?
I will just sit around doing nothing, eating all the food while you do all the work.
Yeah, now would that be different? And now we are alone. We are back to only two.
I don't know what the future holds.
But I'll be holding you. We both could fall apart.
We might not make it through. We both could fall to pieces. And still, it would be true. I'll love whatever's left of you.
Jens and Elsie moved to Parowan shortly after arriving in the Salt Lake Valley in 1856. Here he built a home and married a second wife, Kirsten Jensen, whom he had baptized in Denmark. He built another home in Paraguna. He was called to help settle Circleville, where he started over one more time.
The Spirit whispered to me, Obedience is better than sacrifice.
In 1864, he was called with 75 other families to settle Fairview, later called Panguitch, where he became the presiding elder, now known as a bishop. 2 years later, Indian trouble became so intense in Panguitch that Panguitch was abandoned, and he moved back to Cedar City. In 1876, he married his third wife, Katrina. Gents may have thought that he wouldn't have to start over again, but he did.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the December 29, 1878 Heroin Stake Conference, quarterly conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I will now read the names of brethren who have been called on a mission. They will be called to create a new settlement in the southeast corner of the Utah Territory on the San Juan River. Now, if you'd please stand as your names are read. Stanford Smith, Hiram Perkins, Kuman Jones, Joshua Stevens, Hans Joseph Nielson, Platt Lyman. Thank you, brother. You may take your seats. Walter, you might consider that marriage proposal pretty quick here. Thank you, brother. You may take your seats. As you now consider this mission call, remember, there's no compulsion to go. But those of you who do, who will go, do so with a cheerful heart.
This is the way people learned that their church was calling them on a mission, requiring them to give up their fine homes and their farms and their orchards.
You say you want adventure, you say you're south of heart, you say you're more than willing to make a brand new start. You say that where your heart is, that's where your treasure lies. And loaded up their wagons with their children and their wives. Up one hill and down the other side, on 2 feet without a horse to ride. Don't look back, the Lord will be our guide. Oh, the San Juan Mission. My fingers clutch the blanket, now my tiny newborn babe. And I ask our Heavenly Father, by His grace our lives be saved. We've joined the San Juan Mission, your lives are in your hands. Please save us from starvation and the command that tells me up one hill and down the other side, on 2 feet without a horse to ride. Don't look back, the Lord will be our guide. Oh, the San Juan Mission. We consecrate our hearts to Thee, our hearts and all our needs. We know if we have faith in God, that we can do our deeds. Let's take it to Thee,
Gents volunteered to go, but also hoped for the validation of an official priesthood call. It came at the next conference of the Parowan stake. Single men were counseled to marry. The mission was to be one of permanence and stability. Can you imagine spending the first 6 months of your honeymoon in a wagon box? My grandfather, Walter Joshua Stevens, was courting Elizabeth Kinney at that time. When he received the call, he proposed to her. She eagerly accepted the proposal. This marriage resulted in 14 children, and my father was number 13 of that group.
Oh, Lizzie, won't you go with me? We'll be married in style, and we'll join the San Juan mission, so free and so wild. We'll go down through the Holy Rock, we'll go up San Juan Hill, with the saints, tickety-tootity, on our mission to fulfill.
Oh yes, I will go with you, leave my family behind, to follow my one true love, where treasures we'll find. We'll make friends with the Indians in the Rocky Canyon lands. We'll build a life amid the dangers of the Red Rock Outlaw Band. Oh, Lizzie, won't you go with me? We'll be married in style, and we'll join the San Juan mission, so free and so wild. We'll go down through the hole in the rock, we'll go up San Juan Hill, with the saints taking it to a T, our mission to fulfill. Walter married sweet Lizzie, she was only 16. They loaded up their wagons and their strong oxen team. They crossed the Colorado till they came to the shore, and their orchards they blossomed for their babies as they were born. Oh, Lizzie, won't you go with me? We'll be married in style, and we'll join the San Juan mission, so free and so wild. We'll go down through the hole in the rock, we'll go up San Juan Hill, where the saints stick to a T, our mission to fulfill. A long journey for the newlyweds, on to Bluff and Ferguson. They finally settled in Mexico, where Walter was killed. 14 children he left her, life went by all too soon. Through it all, Lizzie never forgot her hole in the rock honeymoon. Oh, Lizzie, won't you go with me? We'll be married in style, and we'll join the San Juan mission, so free and so wild. We'll go down through the hole in the rock, we'll go up San Juan Hill, with the saints tickety to a T, our mission to fulfill.
The pioneers were literally stopped in their tracks by a stone wall. They camped and waited at the top of the hole in the rock from December 10th until the last week of January. The lives of the whole expedition, as well as the future of the San Juan mission, were at stake. Leading men of the company counseled together with prayer to decide what to do. The deliberation was influenced by Jens Nielsen's declaration.
Brothers and sisters, we must go on.
Oh no, we
whether we can or not,
Just tell us how.
with plenty of sticky turkey.
Sticky what?
The Lord will help us if we do our part.
Stick to your task until it sticks to you. Finish the job, for it's the only thing to do. Beginners are many, finishers are few. Sticky tattooey will get us through. When you meet your maker beyond those pearly gates, can you tell him truthfully I did just what it takes? When you are discouraged, downhearted, or blue, sticky tattooey will get us through. Sticky tattooey will get us through.
Jens Nielson assumed leadership of the first major group of the expedition on October 22nd, 1879. Preparation included selling their possessions, buying teams and wagons and provisions. They packed for a 6-week trip, and then they doubled in food to be fully prepared. They actually reached Bluff 6 months, long time later. Of the 250 people who were on the trip, 120 of them were under the age of 17, 25 of them were under the age of 2 years old. Can you imagine how hard it was for the mothers of young children to keep them safe and to keep them busy and to keep them happy?
A lady came to old San Juan. All her children came along. They had to walk most of the way, and as they walked, you'd hear them say, Mama, I'm tired of walking. Baby's eating an old cow pie. Mama, I can't go to Cactus. I need some water. Mama, I'm tired of walking. Baby's eating an old cow pie. Mama, I can't go to Cactus. I need some water. Mama, I'm tired of walking. Baby's eating I'm tired of walking. Mama, I'm tired of walking. Mama, I'm tired of walking.
Children, you're driving me crazy!
6 months later they arrived. Everyone was still alive. So much work to do, oh my! And as they worked, you'd hear them cry. Mama, I'm tired of working. Baby's eating an old cow pie. Mama, I can't go to Cactus. I need some water. Mama, I'm tired of working. Baby's eating, I'm tired of working. Mama, I'm tired of working. Mama, I'm tired of working. Stop it!
Hush, you're whining. What have I told you about complaining? When you complain about your troubles, repeat them o'er and o'er. The Lord will think you like them and give you more and more. That's right. Hurry up. Let's catch up with the wagons.
When the company struggled up the last obstacle, San Juan Hill, they went on to Bluff. When they reached Bluff, they looked at each other and saw themselves for what they really were, a worn out, discouraged, lean, and hungry people. This place would have to do. They could go no further. Once the crops and the seeds were in the ground, most of the men left their families to go to work in Colorado to generate cash flow just 2 months after arriving in Bluff. Some of the women were worried about their sons' husbands, and brothers how they would conduct themselves miles away among the den of iniquity with saloons and liquor and gambling and dance hall girls.
I told the ladies, trust in your husband's good sense. He married you, didn't he?
Many letters were written in Bluff that summer. The ink was made with gunpowder and vinegar.
I'm missing my man. I'm missing my man. Come on as quick as you can. Come on as quick as you can. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. Honey, hurry, hurry home. My son Pete, do you get enough to eat? Don't forget to say your prayers and wash your feet. Love, Mom. I'm missing my man. Leonard, dear Leonard, won't make me proud. When you meet temptation, just say my name out loud. Sincerely, your true and ever faithful wife, Chastity. I'm missing my man. Sam, my man, I know we need the money, but oh, I miss you, honey. I wish on all the stars above that we could live on love. I'm missing my man. I'm missing my man. Come on as quick as you can. Come on as quick as you can. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. Honey, hurry, hurry home.
Gents and Cumin Jones were the only two men left in the settlement of Bluff. When 100 Navajos rode into Bluff with their faces painted black, carrying their rifles across the saddle, with Cumin Jones as the interpreter, Gents invited them to come and sit and talk together.
I invited the Navajos to stay over the night, and we had a feast of a fat steer, bacon, bread, and other things, so that our new friends were well fed. They called me Crooked Feet. From that time on, they were good friends to me and my people.
The women had to be brave and helped each other with everyday chores of life. A ragby was when the women would get together and tear their clothing, sheets, and whatever they had that could not be mended into strips about 1.5 inches wide, rolled into balls to make rag rugs for their new cabins.
Are you ready, ladies? Yes. Okay. Rip, 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 rip. Rip, 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 rip. We'll make something out of nothing. That's what we've learned to do. We won't complain. All we have is Barbie, feet, and you. If you make what you need with what the good Lord gives to you, then you're a pioneer woman through and through. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. That's the pioneer motto. Use it up and wear it out, make it do or do without. If you don't praise, you shall not want. Earthly treasures do not flaunt.
Elizabeth Harriman made a flag for the first 4th of July celebration in Bluff and couldn't find any red fabric. One of the men donated his red long johns. It was July, after all. I wonder if he missed them the next winter.
Use it up and wear it out, make it do or do without.
We were so glad to get our flour from Durango, and we used the bags it came in to make our underwear. On many children's rear ends in bright red and blue letters were the words, "Pride of Durango."
Use it up and wear it out, make it do or do without.
A pioneer woman had carefully saved and dried peas from her garden to plant the next spring. As soon as the weather allowed, she prepared the soil and planted her treasured pea seeds. As she was washing dishes inside at the sink, she saw her old rooster scratching out the seeds and eating them as fast as he could. She grabbed her knife and went outside, chopped the rooster's head off, cut open his belly, retrieved the pea seeds, and planted them again. She made chicken soup for dinner.
We'll make something out of nothing, that's what we've learned to do. We won't complain if all we have is party, treat and do. If you made it hard to hear it, what the good Lord gets for you, then you're a pioneer well and through, and birthday trials just do not flaunt.
There's not much to flaunt in the cabins in the fort. All we had was cottonwood trees for logs. Have you ever seen how crooked a cottonwood tree grows? We were constantly refilling the cracks in the crooked logs with mud and weeds. But after almost a year of living in our wagon boxes, oh, what luxury to get out of the blazing sun and under a cool dirt roof, even if the floor was dirt too. The dirt floors were constantly sprinkled with hot water to make them hard.
Each little log of my house, crooked as a cottonwood tree. Each little log of my house, so very beautiful to me. This wall has a window, this wall has a door. Stubborn weeds are growing up through the floor. This wall has a window, this wall has a door. Stubborn weeds are growing so very beautiful to the floor. Each little log of my house, crooked as a cottonwood tree. Each little log of my house, so very beautiful to me. This wall has a window, this wall has a door. Stubborn weeds are growing, stubborn to the floor. Stubborn weeds of my house, each little log of my house, each little log of my house, so very beautiful to me.
Jody Woods came 2 years after the first settlers and was called to be the doctor and a midwife. In her journal entries, she wrote, quote,
I told the authorities that I was as green as a pickle and didn't even know where babies came from.
Many times she invited me to go with her to help deliver babies. Indian and pioneer children both began to believe Aunt Jody brought the little babies in her small black bag. Many times she was directed by the Lord how to take care of the sick both in Bluff and on the reservation. She felt especially blessed of the Lord with discernment in delivering babies in difficult situations. Oftentimes her whole family knelt in prayer before she went forth to take care of the sick.
Called by God to comfort those in need. Aunt Jody's hands are sure to bring relief, and it always seems to bring a brighter day. Whenever I hear Aunt Jody pray, she brings a touch of Heavenly Mother's love. Gifts of peace and hope from God above. She won't rest till she's given all she can. The gift of life and Jody's hands. When I was young, I said I might pass on, and Jody's hands were gentle yet so strong. She lifted me up to a will to live. She gave me all she had to give. She brings a touch of Heavenly Mother's love. Gifts of peace and hope from God above. She won't rest till she's given all she can. The gift of life and Jody's hands. The gift of life and Jody's hands.
Everybody knows that men can explore a country, but it's not settled until a woman comes and makes a home.
The next song is dedicated to the wives of Jens Nielson, Elsie, Kirsten, and Katrina, and all the valiant women of the San Juan Mission.
They left the comfort of their homes to heed the prophet's call, to settle in a barren land where they would give their all. These valiant women walk by faith, their Savior as their guide. Their strength and wisdom will live on in us. They will abide. These valiant women, young and old, would bear a heavy load, but would rejoice in what they had as sisters in Zion's fold. These valiant women walk by faith, their Savior as their guide. Their strength and wisdom will live on in us. They will abide. These valiant women will live on in our minds and in our hearts, as we help and comfort those in need and strive to do our part. These valiant women walk by faith, their Savior as their guide. Their strength and wisdom will live on in us. They will abide. These valiant women walk by faith, their Savior as their guide. Their strength and wisdom will live on in us. They will abide in us. They will abide.
We may never experience the depths of sorrow and struggles of the life as they did in their pioneer days. May we learn from Jens Nielson to be grateful for our blessings and our heritage.
When the Lord preserved my life in the Willie Handcart Company, I promised to dedicate my life to Him. The Lord has blessed me on my right hand and on my left.
Jens Nielson served the people of Bluff as their bishop for 25 years.
Born on an island across the sea, a Danish man inside and out. Jens Nielsen, a soul of the highest degree, found out what his life was about. He heard of a boy who had seen God and Christ. He heard of a book they called Mormon. He heard of a land where he'd pay a dear price to be a servant of old San Juan. He took his sweet Elsie and little boy Jens and crossed o'er the sea to the new land. The saints he was seeking had moved to the west, so the three followed on hand in hand. Jens pulled a handcart across the great plains, where his little boy died and was buried. Entered Salt Lake, the city, crippled and pained, and off to the south they were hurried. Sweet Elsie brought Kirsten and Catherine along and gave to her sweetheart to marry. With 16 children and a lot of that good old Jens Nielsen stickety-to-tooty, they settled 5 towns with their heaviest load yet to carry. Called and a bishop to a place far away, the journey was hard and was so long. A friend of the red man through all of his days in the mission of old San Juan. For he knew of the prophet who'd seen God and Christ. He knew the truth of the book he called Mormon. So he followed his heart, though he paid a dear price to be the bishop of old San Juan. The bishop of old San Juan. He was the bishop of old San Juan. Stick to your task until it sticks to you. Finish the job, for it's the only thing to do. Beginners are many, finishers are few. Sticking to duty will get us through. When you meet your maker beyond those pearly gates, can you tell him truthfully I did just what it takes? When you are discouraged, downhearted, or blue, sticking to duty will get us through. Sticking to duty will get us